change man
내 행보는 여전히 그 다음 레벨 내 타이페이
표치 안 봐라 shit 안 봐라 치고 다다라치 I'm the owner of my goal 진짜 만남 보가 make it right 좀 조져 clear
정적을 깨버리지 나의 trigger fire 저 끝까지 관역을 don't win.
Hi. Oh, I was like, wait, I want more of that song. That right now is a song that just pumps me up by Stray Kids. Welcome. Happy Saturday. I see that Berta's on. Hello from Toronto, which I'm planning on going in November. Stay tuned. I'm just finalizing things. Welcome. It's Saturday, August 24th. And I'm so excited to be greeting you live from my office. Yes, in the States. And because this might be, no, I have a couple more Saturdays before I am in Korea. So I would love to continue the show in Korea. Technically, last week was my 1-year anniversary of K-Talk. But it's been really hard to do it consistently just because, hello, my travel schedule. But I'm really trying to do it more often because I love these. And it's just what I do, you know? And so hello from New Jersey. Oh, I love the Pungo oil. And Nancy, I know, I love that song. I like, there's something about it. Plus, it just like gives me the energy. Yes, I would love to be in Toronto soon. Hello from Connecticut, Carla. Welcome, guys. So I have a lot to discuss because a lot of you guys asked tons of questions. This particular session or YouTube will be a little heavy. And of course, just as I'm speaking to you, I hear the lawn guy outside. So hopefully you don't hear that. Good morning from LA. Hi, Mama Bear. Where are you guys dialing in from? So that said, what are you guys currently watching? Put it in the chat box right now. What are you currently watching? Because I was going to start with what I'm watching. Love Next Door, which I'll talk about. Romance in the House, Mellow and Family, or Family and Mellow in Korean. I like that family title, Korean title better. And The Frog. Okay, so hello from Toronto, Lisa. The Frog, let me tell you something. I had to stop because we're in the middle of it and I'm trying to support my friend, co-directed it, produced it. Love her, but it's creepy. So not exactly good for your mental health. But if you guys like thriller and horror, you're going to love it because hubby is eating it up. He's like, can I just continue without you? I was like, yeah, I think you're going to have to. So I watched almost all of it, I think minus 2 episodes. It is actually very intriguing. But yes, I want to know what you guys are watching. Oh, Sophie. And from Delaware, yay. Okay, you're watching. Oh, how is Bad Memory Eraser? And Signal's good. Yes, everyone's watching Romance in the House. Well, I asked you guys, what are you watching? Because that's important. So I told you guys the 2 new ones on Netflix, The Frog, which put a kind of a pause, and rewatching My Sweet Monster. Yeah. For like the 10th time. Sorry. You know, when I'm stressed, I just turn on what I want to go to. And that's that one. This was a very stressful week, actually. Pachinko. Yes, I should start Pachinko. I think it's because I love the book and it's a little different from the book. So I struggle a little bit, but I do have a friend of mine in Pachinko season 2. So I want to support her. Bubba's starting The Frog today. Yeah, I'm sure he'll like it because it's really creepy. Very good acting, I will say. And everybody's saying hi to each other. Some folks are from my tours, guys. Love Next Door. Twinkling Watermelon. If I could watch Twinkling Watermelon again for the first time, I would. I'm just checking in. What else? You guys just joining. What are you watching? Okay. Now, here are some updates. So excited to share some updates. What are my first updates? Well, I just finished a TEDx talk. Yeah, see that? I love showing off that dress. Let me tell you the story. In dress rehearsal, that dress was not going to work. This beautiful red hanbok I got from Korea 2 weeks before I left, thinking this is for my TEDx talk. And it's not cheap. Everybody, including my husband, was like, I don't think you can wear this because the lights were reddish. And I remember seeing the lights going, crap, this is not going to work for my dress. I'd be like blending in. And the camera guy was like, well, for now, these are the lights. I couldn't say, can you change the lights? But we were going back and forth. And thank goodness I always have a backup dress. But the backup dress was white. And it was cute and all. But for a TEDx talk, for a talk like that, I was like, I have to wear what I wanted to wear. So I was very disappointed that evening. And so I was thinking, it's okay. It's going to be a good talk. White will look nice. I didn't want to, be too red, obviously. But then overnight, they changed the lights. So I'm sharing about my TEDx talk. I was able to wear red because that to me is a powerful color for me. It pops on screen for me. And I wanted to match the TEDx colors. That was part of my plan. And so they changed the colors overnight, not just for me, just overall. And I was so thankful because what I wore was going to give me like that 110% confidence I needed for my TEDx talk, which, by the way, a TEDx talk, you cannot promote your own work per se. So I couldn't say, guys, I wrote a book on K-dramas and mental health. I didn't say that. I just talked about my work and how I innovated mental health and brought in K-dramas. And that was the whole theme. And I'm just waiting now for the TEDx screening. So keep your fingers crossed and prayers that it goes through screening, because then once it does, it's on the TEDx YouTube and it's all free for all. And then more people hear that message. And I think I did well. That's based on the compliments. And I felt good about it based on the engagement. And I really didn't know how funny I was. So I thought about, I think I could do some comedy. Yeah. Because that would be nice for my mental health, because I like being funny. And so I guess I was funny on the talk, because what I did was I acted out scenes. I was an actress. I acted out conversations that I've had in real life when I was a child to an adult. And yes, some of the tour people were part of my TEDx. The inaugural tour was as well. And I just haven't had a time to talk about it. So that's my update. I also want to just conclude by talking about the book tour. The second round of my book tour went very well. It was very different. It was in a convention, stressful in that sense. I met so many, it was a very corporate-y setting, but very fun. And obviously it's all about, promoting what I'm doing and just getting more and more people to understand why I do what I do. And I always hear, I'm so glad to meet you because you helped me, justify or at least explain how K-dramas have helped me. And that was like the most fun thing I heard. I love everybody saying hello. So yes, I made new friends from TEDx. I still keep in touch with them. One of them flew right to Portugal. Another one is still in the DC area. It's so important to make new friends. And people, by the way, the TEDx audience, more than half had never heard about K-dramas or don't know much about them. So to me, that is a terrific audience because I'm introducing the concept for the first time. So that's that. And then, okay, the next thing I want to talk about, so my book tour is going well. Don't worry, there's more to come. I can finally reveal my special project, Made in Korea. I'm so sad it is not available in the US yet. The hope is it will be, right? But it is in the UK and in all of Europe, because apparently I got some DMs from Italy. They were like, we fell off our chair seeing you and we're in Italy. And I was like, oh, it's in Italy. So I filmed it. That was a secret project. And how it came about, because the biggest question I got was, how did Made in Korea come about? They found me. And that was super blessing. And I'll tell you honestly, I ignored the messages and emails because I was like, what is this? Like, what are they talking about? Like some UK boy band going through K-pop training. I kid you not. So I kind of ignored that email and I think a LinkedIn message for like 2 days. And I was traveling during that time. So I really remember this. And I was like, that's, sometimes you get spam. And I'm one of those more critical people of that because I'll get some stuff. So I'll be like, I'm going to ignore it. But then the person emailed me and it was legit. I went, oh, this is an executive producer. So I spoke to him, clicked with him, and the rest is history. But he found me. And one of the things he shared that I want to tell you that was part of my TEDx talk, the very thing that I thought was against me growing up, my bicultural identity. You hear me talk about it a lot. As a Korean American, I really, really had a hard time being Korean American. That was the very thing he was looking for in me. Not only did he want a Korean American like coach or therapist who was an expert on wellness, right? He wanted someone who was comfortable and was going to be good on camera. And so he's like, you fit all that. I was like, really? And then I went, where would you see me on camera? He's like, oh, we've been searching. So they found me. And long story short, just going through some process, meeting the producers and all that stuff. Then I had to change my whole schedule to fly to Korea about like 5 weeks earlier than planned to film the first block. So that is what happened. Oh my God, you guys, this FOMO conversation I'm loving. Hello to the tour group. Love you guys. Miss you guys. And for those of you coming on my tours, I can't wait to meet you. So that's Made in Korea. But I'm going to tell you this. What I love about the process they did was 100% Korean cultural K-pop training, meaning they got it all in Korean and they had to get translated in Korean. that was very authentic. It was a UK boy band going through the SM Entertainment K-pop process, like NCT, EXO, aespa, all those who are the original, Shiny. They went through the same process only for 100 days. It was part of the experiment. And I saw them because they were like being translated. I think there was like a really expert translator and then other translators. Sometimes I translated, you know, if I was with some executives. And that was, but to me, as a Korean American who wanted to see the real, wanted folks to just get the authenticity of K-pop and not be watered down, to be honest with you, it wasn't. So I hope it's shown in the US. Then that means more people will see me, but it's very uncomfortable. But the concept is super fun, and they are. And one of the questions I got from you guys, are they really that close? Yes. Let me tell you, I had to redirect the conversation like their mom like 5 times in like a camera session. I'd be like, okay, boys, okay, you know, I was like, okay, so that's great. This inside joke. I'd be like, I need to check up on you. So I did a lot of that, and the camaraderie there was there from day one, and they welcomed me from day one. And so it was a great process. So that said, 5 more episodes, two episodes, 2 to 6 are coming out starting on Saturdays. So I hope I can see it. And they send me the clip so I could see it, and I'll keep you posted. But that was a great experience. I will also share Made in Korea. The K-pop experience was difficult because I was on camera doing what I do in real life. So there were times I was like, I'm on camera, you know? And so next time I do something like this, or if this happens again, I might say, how about I not go on camera and I be the off-camera expert? Because I just prefer to be that off-camera expert to really help, because I was considered talent, which is great. And I was considered talent. I couldn't do as much conversing with the boys. It had to be authentic and genuine. When they'd be like, Jeannie, and I'd be like, hey, and they're like, oh, try to not do your conversations before camera. And I was like, oh, you know? So, and that's not me in real life. So I think we'll have to see how that is, because that's what I do in real life. I didn't act out me. I was Jeannie Chang, what I do. You can't watch it from, I know you can't watch from they are trying to, I think people are seeing how it's doing in the BBC or on the BBC before they can deal with the US purchase rights. But, you know, they're all shopping it around, and that's how it works. So overall, I've had a terrific process, and it was great. And so there's more filming. So that I was filming literally February to end of May, early June, in between my tours. Hence why the spring was chaotic, but it was great. And so I'm going to move on now because I got to get to real stuff. Okay, let's keep going. And let's talk about my tours real quick. Okay, so we did release, based on lots of questions, a 2-part payment plan. And we did that because I think that was the number one question we got. And but it took time to do it. Just so you know, on the back end, it was like a whole overhaul system and an investment, but that's okay. So we did that. And I would say at this point, the Jeju tours are the most light, but 70% BTS and multi-city sold out, which we expected. Now the Jeju tour, the Korea team, which I had a little FOMO, my Korea team, I've already been to Jeju, and that's how we did the itinerary with hubby and my son. I think I went twice this year to map out the itinerary. You guys saw me there, but they were there this week going through my actual itinerary. And so of course they're like, okay, so we got to change some things. It's a heavy itinerary. It's not bad, but they were like, let's change dates. But I'm super excited to share. We were finalizing. I just didn't share because we were still finalizing that itinerary, right? So the big thing is it's 5 days in Jeju, 4 nights, 5 days in Jeju Island. And the other 3 days are in Seoul, because that's just easier to get. And we will fly back and forth. And I think that's easiest. And there will be a ferry ride on Jeju Island as an experience, but not back and forth. I wanted to minimize time spent because there was so much to see. We will be not mainly seeing K-drama filming sites in Seoul for this trip. We will be outside of Seoul in the near vicinity. By the way, do you know how many things are filmed outside of Seoul in the near vicinity? I'm talking 20 to 30 minutes right outside of Seoul, like the biggest K-dramas you can think of. And because we got to switch it up, right? I got to do new things. So it will not be quite Seoul. We say Seoul, but it's really outside of Seoul and Jeju. So it's a whole new tour, hence making it more busy for next year. Yeah. And then some other things which we'll announce. But yes, that's the Jeju tour. So excited. And thank you so much. It wasn't, oh my gosh, I'm not even looking at comments. So sorry. I know, I can't wait to have you in Jeju. All right, let's go to K-dramas. Okay, let's start with first the new ones. A Romance in the House. Yes. So Kajok Mello is family, mellow, like melodramatic. I prefer that one because it refers to the family. The reason why I wanted to bring up their title is sometimes I'm baffled by the translation in English. I'm like, I'd like to talk to them someday. Why do you do this title? Because Kajok and Mellow, just why can't you just do family and mellow? Like it's about the family. There's romance in the house, maybe if they're talking about the parents. What I love about this drama is you're seeing a family all tied together, right? I'm not trying to give spoilers, but romance in the parents and then the adult kids. And I was trying to think of other K dramas where you see this maybe once again, and some of the KBS family dramas on Vicky that you see are pretty similar, but I love that it's on Netflix. I absolutely want to point out the relationship with the father and daughter. That's what I'm watching. The other stuff is cute. Of course, the romance with the daughter and the romance with the mom and the father, that's all cute. But I really like, that's where I'm thinking Kajok and Mellow, that term comes in where it's about the father and daughter's relationship. And I wanted to point out, culturally speaking, the daughter, she feels so much responsibility. You could see that if you're watching it, even in 4 episodes, the responsibility to take care of her family. I see that in real life. I see that in Korea. There is, it doesn't mean the parents are so dependent on their adult kids, but there is that, giving back to the parents. And that's why in some sense, when I go to Korea, I'm like, oh, like I am thankful that there wasn't that much pressure from my parents because again, I grew up in the US, so that matters. And I think they rename them in English completely, maybe to make it more friendly or more like, I don't know, like clickbaity. Okay, that's not the right word, but I just really like the term family, kajok, and mellow, and the drama in between the father and daughter. There's got to be a lot of healing there. The daughter has lots of, I think she's a wonderful daughter, and she took on a lot of responsibility as a child I think she's like in her early 20s or mid 20s in the drama. And the mom knows that. So I love all this and I'm eating that up, but I wanted to reflect back that I see a lot of that heaviness, which is why there's so much financial responsibility and strain on the younger folks, and it's not necessarily the parents putting that strain, because I see parents going, oh, I wish my kid could do this and my daughter could do this. So it's not like they're trying to go, you owe me and do all this. I just think financially things are difficult. It's very expensive, and particularly in Seoul. So I wanted to say this reflects that society that makes me think as a Korean American, wow, like I did have it easy, like in that sense, my parents were not like pay us back. And so you see a little bit of that about that in Korea, but not so much that selfishness, like pay us back. It's just more like we need your help financially. And that's why you see them live in the home. So it's extremely expensive to live in Korea. Yeah, in Seoul, mainly Seoul. The drama's name is Romance in the House on Netflix. Yes, thank you. But I wanted to point out, let's keep looking. Obviously, only 4 episodes in, so I don't normally do a deep dive, but I wanted to share that I'm really enjoying that one and watching their relationship. I want to go to, what is it? Love Next Door. Okay, so Love Next Door, of course I knew it was going to be the next hit. You got these 2 stars. It's on Netflix. It was getting a lot of hype. I will answer your questions shortly that have to do with this, but one thing I did want to mention, that seeing that very opening, like first 2 episodes between the family and the daughter, this is Chung So-min's, is it Chung So-min? Is that her name? Yeah. Oh my God. Tell me what her name is. Like I know the actress's name, not really so much Chung Hyun's name, Chung Hyun's family, but her family dynamic is very interesting. His family, I'm sure the dynamic will come later where he's very distant, seems like, right? He's closer to her family. So I actually think there's questions on this. So I'm not going to I'll deep dive as the questions you guys had a lot to do with this that I'll bring up. But overall, I think it's heavier than I thought it would be, particularly in the first 2 episodes. When I say heavy, maybe it's because I felt it. It was like a very familiar example of the parental expectations. You see it in Romance in the House differently, where the mom feels bad for her daughter. You see the opposite in Love Next Door, where the daughter felt so much pressure that she's in a different life transition, and she shares about it. And there is that scene where she shares all this pressure. Though both scenarios are completely realistic and very drastically different. Do you know what I mean? But I grew up with the latter one. So whenever I see that episode of like these parental expectations, I'm like, oh, Yeah, you know? And so I think the family, I think, raised him. Yeah, her family raised him. Yeah, because the parents were very busy, right? Chung Hain's parents were much busier. So you're right. He's much closer to Chung So Min's parents. I think that's her name. So please correct me. What is her name? Oh my goodness, I love her. But the latter representation of love next door is probably a little bit more common from what I see. And so I will pause on that because you guys have lots of questions. But I absolutely love those dramas and I'm watching them besides My Sweet Mobster. Did I say that I love My Sweet Mobster? Yeah, I love that one. I'll probably do more on that one. Okay. And then I even thought about adding My Sweet Mobster's like filming spots on the tour, but it's I can't do that because they're kind of distant. Let's talk about the questions you guys have. Lots of tough questions. I picked the ones that I felt like I could best answer. And then the other ones I will answer in different ways, whether through reels where I can really deep dive. So let's go to the first question. Yes, you're right. Love Next Door has lots of funny moments. Actually, every K-drama has that whole, like I call it the gamut of emotions to like heavy to super, super slapstick comedy within like the same scene or even the same episode, right? In Love Next Door, why do the mom friends say such unkind things? Yeah, that Chung So Min. Okay, so I was right. Yes, they do say unkind things. I grew up with that. So even in the US, Korean Americans will tell you that is so accurate. Like moms compete. I am a Korean American mom of third generation kids. So depending on the community I'm in, I'll do my best not to fall into that. In fact, I think I don't. I do the opposite, right? I'll say bad things about my kids. I'm just kidding. But they do that. And it's very prevalent in the US amongst the Korean Americans and very prevalent in Korea. You always hear it. Even when I meet my family, it's all about what the child's doing, what car they're driving, where they're living. And when they say unkind things, it comes across unkind, right? And this is not to justify, but a lot of that has to do with such a high competitive society. It's all about where you went to school, then what you're doing, how much money you're making, where you're living, and even with marriage, which is another question coming up. So they sound mean, but it's really who's one-upping each other. And when I saw that beginning scene in Love Next Door, you'll know what I mean if you haven't seen it yet. I was just like, oh my gosh, I really hope this is not the whole drama because that is very realistic for me. So yeah, it happens a lot in the family and they'll even talk now. What are your kids up to? How much money they make? It is so direct questions. How much money do you make, Jeannie? How much of this are you doing? Do you have this? It's very like that, but that's the culture. That is Korean society. We can't compare to the US or Canada or other countries because we're all living in different countries, right? So obviously the US has a big K-drama viewership, so it does come a lot here. But I think that's very important. I would think they wouldn't say as friends with the way they talk to each other. No, they're friends. And you can clearly see that because one day we'll see in Love Next Door how they stay friends. The Chung will come up. This is Korean society. So that Chung is what holds people close, that belongingness. In a time of crisis is where you'll see it. When, maybe when Chung-in was growing up as a kid on the show, they all rallied behind him and took care of him. That's what you see, and that's what's heartwarming. But the other hard part and the reality is like, yeah, doing those digs of like, oh my God, we heard your daughter broke her engagement and now she's not working. That is very accurate. They'll do that. And that's why people struggle, right? And so you see the good, bad, ugly, pretty, heartwarming, worse, and toxic. You see all that. So I think K-dramas are quite representative of Korean society and culture. Oh, why did they say something? Let me just answer. Competition. Let me move on. In K-dramas, mothers always worry about their son's future, but also their daughter's future. Yes, 100%. 100%. Yeah, like they'll start worrying at like age 20 if they're going to find a partner. I mean, you know what I mean? My parents always worry. They worry like if I'm like dressed not warm enough, like I'll be like, oh my God, right? Or if I'm drinking too much coffee or not drinking. It's always that. It's in that society, it can be very enmeshed. It's not unhealthy or healthy. Remember, there's lots of grays because I dare not ever, like, even though, and I've done my own work, I don't ever want to insult the culture because that is how they do things. And then there's lots of love there as in why you fell in love with the K-dramas in the first place, right? But they worry so much and they worry, and it's legit worry financially, Very difficult in Korea unless you go to the top schools, right, to guarantee the job. So there's so much of that. You see it. The SATs, the Suning, they take once a year. US, you could take it as many times as you want, the SATs. So I don't know how it is in your other countries. Let me know. And so you have one chance, one per year, and to go to the school you want to. And going to a school in Seoul does make a difference. So that's why. And so they worry a lot. And of course, they also worry about the partner who you're going to get together with. So I'll talk about that in a second. Next question. I love this question. Yes. Korean, Asian genetic makeup. You do get fevers when you're stressed. And when I see it, I crack up because I so relate. It's exactly like in Korean. Oh, it's called momsal. Momsal is this feverish, like low-grade fever you get after a stressful situation. Also, you can get momsal because you're definitely like getting a virus or a cold. Like I felt momsal from the shingles vaccine. You guys know that. I'm feeling much better. But I shared the fever thing is very legit in treating patients. I treat Asian patients. I see it all the time. I'll be like, you have a low-grade fever. You're suffering with a low-grade fever for 1 year. What's your stress left like? And I'm going to share my stress. I left a very toxic corporate workplace environment, even when I was a therapist. Don't ask me why I diverted. It's part of my life story. I was sick on and off during that 14 months of trying to exit with the momsal, low-grade fever. And I even recently experienced the low-grade fever as recently as a month ago after I had a very difficult, I enjoyed speaking, but it was a very difficult weekend. And I was absorbing lots of toxicity, I'll just be honest. And I crashed that Sunday. Like I recall my husband going, I'm so sick. I can't even move. Like my family was like, what is going on? I go, I can't even move. I canceled everything. I was in DC and like I had like 100+ fever and people are like COVID, but I knew it wasn't COVID. I was like, no, I don't have any other symptoms. I'm exhausted and stressed. So it's just kind of like our body. And when I treat a lot of some from East Asian, I'm East Asian, Southeast Asian, like Vietnamese and South Asian Indian, from those patients I've treated, I see this. And it has to do with the way we're absorbing stress. We don't release it as well. It's part of the culture. You see it in the K-dramas. So that's very true, the fever. And you're sometimes bedridden. Okay, let's go to the next question. Let me know if you have, by the way, if you have more questions, let me know. What's the deal behind parents hitting their adult children? I've gotten this before. You still see it, but it's not quite commonplace today. I like to observe families, my own families, my cousins and their kids. No, I don't see it. So I think, I'll be honest with you, it did happen back in the day, like when I was growing up. So yeah, you would get hit or it'd be like, smacked, and it's the Korean discipline way, corporal punishment sometimes. And seeing it on adult children, I would say I don't know any one single personal case. That doesn't mean it's not happening. So I think this is a little bit more of the old school thought of what used to exist. And sometimes you have that and they just want to show that. And don't forget, Chong So-min, thank you, Chong So-min. You don't forget that you will sometimes see for dramatic purposes. But in all honesty, I don't see it in the new parents today. Parents they have younger kids. Adult kids like me, no, my parents don't do that to me, right? And then I'm trying to think of my cousins in Korea. No. So like from what I see, it's not commonplace today. So more dramatic purposes. I'm just going to answer it that way. Daughter-in-law. Oh, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. There's lots of cultural things with the hitting. Yeah. And that's the other thing. This is why it's difficult. We don't see it much in the US. There's not so much corporal punishment though in the South, like the Southern culture. Yeah, people tell me all the time, and depending on the community, they're like, yeah, I grew up, being smacked or being hit, right? So it doesn't mean it's good or bad. It's just the way they were disciplined. And so, yeah, I was disciplined that way too, but it's not like that today for sure. Are there still loan sharks today? Yep. I've never interacted with them, but you see advertisements everywhere posted, sometimes in public restrooms, or you'll see advertisements on the floor. And sometimes my husband will point them out going, oh, there's a loan shark advertisement. So yes, they do exist. Thank goodness never had to deal with any of them. So you can imagine that they still exist. And the ads will say stuff like, do you need money? Right? Yeah. Okay, next question. Any other questions, please ask in the chat box. Hitting in the workplaces. Also no longer commonplace. from what I know. And I ask, and I'll ask blunt questions going, please tell me this doesn't, but they're going, no. So dramatic purposes, but back in the day, yes. So probably when I was growing up, if I grew up in Korea during the time, maybe I was in my 20s, probably. Yeah. Again, it's shocking. Culturally speaking, not so shocking. Don't forget, don't forget, I don't know if you guys know this. My husband went to elementary school in Korea. He tells me about how they get hit as kids. It was very, very normal to be like, come here, come right here, hit with the ruler, right? And I think we did even have that in the US back in the day, right? In certain communities. So again, old school, you see it in the drama, but I think that doesn't exist today. And I think it's more for dramatic purposes. There's different rules now, just like HR, human resources plays a big role now. Yeah. And the Generation Z, they ain't going to take that. Gen Zs are like, no way. Heck, I'm not going out for drinks. They're very, 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 very firm on their boundaries, which I like to see, which as an older generation, we didn't do that as well. So I'm bringing that in. They're like, you do this, I'm going to, do this as like, I'm going to make sure that you get punished. So I do see that. That doesn't mean the law always works in my favor, but the hitting is not commonplace. Yeah, thanks for sharing, Berta. Yeah, parents hitting children or also in schools. Let's go on to the next question. Same in France. Yeah. So I don't know why they still bring that up because I think it could be triggering for people. Let me ask. I'll ask if I ever get an opportunity, but then you got to be careful. You don't want to offend anybody. Hey, why do you bring that in? But again, I think it's dramatic and it's also part of the nuance. I will see friends like hitting each other going, oh my gosh, I'll see that. Don't you sometimes even hit your friend going, oh my God, stop saying that. That kind of thing I see, but that's more in jest and being funny. Can you talk about age hierarchy in and out of work environment? Do you want to have the whole hour? Just kidding. Ageism is such a big deal in the Asian culture. Talking specifically Korean culture, always staying in my lane, still to this day, even in the US, even amongst Korean Americans. I'm like, okay, they want me to address them in a certain way. And so I have reached the point, I think it helps being older, but 20 years ago, if I was doing business in Korea, I'd be like, what did you say? Right? You get a little more, you have more of an attitude when you're in your 20s. Now 50 and having kids that age, I understand both times. That means I'm getting older. Yeah, it means I'm getting old. But I'm understanding the older folks who are like, I'm older and wiser. And now I'll just be like, yes, you are. Even though I'm like, oh my gosh, calm down. But it's all about the age. The Korean culture is all about respect of the elders. You see it, right? And even if they're wrong, and that's another societal issue. If they're wrong and you can't say anything, that's a problem. But you see that in real life. And so there are moments when I would get spoken down to, and then I pulled the age card because I'm like, I think they think I'm younger than I really am. And then I'll just bring up something with age or saying something like, oh, by the way, my daughter who's 24. And they're like, what? Wait, how old are you? I always love that expression. I'm like, oh, yeah, I turned 50. Or in Korean, you say chichusa, so 74, you're 74. Then they're like, oh, Noona. And I crack up when it works in my favor. I'm like, yes, yeah, I'm your Noona. But generally speaking, I have to do the same respect. And they will also greet you very formally until you get close enough where you can do that. Just like you see in the K-dramas, it's all like that. And I've come to live with it, right? But growing up, it was kind of the angst of the way I lived. I was like, you're only like 1 year and you want me to call you Noona, right? Or sorry, Anni, or call you Oppa, right? That's just what you expect. Now, it just comes out, especially when I'm in Korean conversations, to do that out of respect, or sambe, right? You say the colleague thing. That's really important. Ageism, you're right. Ageism is live in well America too. I do it all the time in my corporate talks. Yeah, when people think I'm like 30. I'm like, actually, no. Yes. And I, of course, as an elder myself, I think one person even said, oh, you're like a nunim, which means I'm much older than, I was like, what? You can call me Noona. I think it's important that there is that respect. Yeah. And I'm very honest when I say it was the plague of my life, but you just come to reach an age where you understand why it exists. And it can be hard in some circles. To be honest with you, it is hard when I'm sitting there going, but I do run my own company. And then you get somebody saying this and they're older, you just listen. And I guess that helps. That's what I do for a living. So I just listen and go, okay. But behind the scenes, I'm like, that doesn't mean I'm going to do it. Right. But it's just showing that respect. And these days, sometimes the younger generation, even in Korea, I see they've kind of shifted, so they don't do that as much. It doesn't mean they're disrespecting. They're just much more online with even American trends. And I like it and I don't. Like, I like it because then I feel like we're close. But then sometimes I'm like, okay, but yeah, so, just so you know, like technically I'm your boss, right? So that kind of thing, it's a fine balance. But it's very much a big deal. The age hierarchy does exist, and much more in the work environment, meaning in corporate Korea, very, 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 very traditional still. So it can be hard for the younger folks. Yeah. Let's see. My kids are in their 30s and I hate being dumped out too. Yeah. You know what? I'm glad that I'm close to my kids, but yeah, when I see a text, like I'm going, did you just say that to me? Right. Still their mom. Why do some adults, including doctors, still choose to live with their parents? There is still that elder respect, and the whole taking care of still exists. I actually very much respect it when I see it, because I'm like, man, we live on our own, and I love that. And my parents leave me alone because I grew up in the West, so in America, where they do that. But the reason why I see it in Korea is like a lot of work taking care of your family, and if you're under the same roof, there's some of that. But then I also feel like it's not always healthy if the parents like my parents are taking care of their adult kids. So some choose to do it, some have to do it, financial reasons. Don't forget, doctors in Korea may be paid differently than the US. It's very different. The pay scale is very different. It's kind of shocking to me as a Korean American that I'm like, what? Like, what is the pay? Right? And so for an economy like Seoul that's fast, booming, global, it doesn't quite always match. So financially, especially if they want to live, in a decent sized apartment or house, apartments are much more commonplace in Korea, and they want to afford a nice area, Seoul, then they do choose to live together. Yeah. And so it doesn't matter. And I see lots of families living together. I'm trying to think. I even think I'm impressed with my own cousins and family when they live by themselves in the heart of Seoul. I'm like, I'm impressed. I'm saying that's a lot of work. You're living on your own. They're like, yeah. And they're proud of it because it's a huge deal. We're proud of it in the US too, but it's like next level in Korea because it is so expensive. And, but they still have family gatherings and all that stuff. But yeah, it's something of a choice. And sometimes they have to financially. Filial piety. Yeah. That's in my book. Filial piety, to define it, it's not just respect. It is deep-rooted obligation. And I just shared about this, I forget, in one of my sessions or something, where it's not bad. At first, people will be like, oh my gosh, filial piety, that's so bad. But I never say anything's bad because that's part of your culture. So if you say something's bad about your culture, you're saying something about your identity, meaning, oh, I don't like this part of my identity. You can say you struggle with how this was. I just told you I struggled with that elder stuff. I still do, right? But it's part of my culture. So I just navigate it, and then there's good and bad to all of that. So that's filial piety, very strong in Asian cultures. Thank you for that. But I call it a deep-rooted sense of obligation. Obligation sounds different, right? Like even servitude, you still see it. As a 50-year-old, I still have it. Oh, definitely, right? Pleasing the family. It's there. And by the way, it's not just in Asian cultures, that concept. It's in many communities of like, okay, who doesn't want to please their parents or their family, right? It's just the way the behavior is geared toward that in Korean culture, very strong. In Latin America, it was common to live with your parents until you got married, more abroad to study or work. It's a given. You don't think about it much. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I love hearing about your culture. It's really important. I think some people shared about the Italian culture too. Very much family-centric, right? Anything to help. And so, of course, if my kids need to live with us, of course, we welcome them. But our first thing was, hey, if you could live on your own, and then they chose to get jobs elsewhere. I'm proud of that too. And I'll tell you this, even some Korean American and Korean moms said to me, your kids live so far away. They said this not as a compliment. And I remember getting a little defensive going, okay, so the Americanized person in me would be like, that's great. They're living on their own off our payroll. But if they need help, we're always there. We talk to our kids like practically every day. But then they're seeing it as, but they're so far away from you. I guess DC and then Charleston. And then when we're in Korea, yes, it could be far, but it doesn't matter distance. I know some people who live very close in the same family and they're just as indifferent and I would say very not close as can be. Does that make sense? So when I say this to folks going, well, culturally speaking, I raised my kids third generation. So Korean culture came first, but didn't trump everything. I wanted them to be independent, and that I do see them flourishing and doing life, though they'll call us like, how do I do insurance and all this stuff? Yeah. But I want them to be independent. So I wanted to share that. Still that mentality that I'm faced with as a Korean American mother. Oh yeah, a lot of the actors still live with their parents, actually more than you think. Do people visit hospitals and get IV drips so easily? We see it a lot. Yes, indeed. I did it too. They don't need to just visit hospitals. They can go to any clinic. You can go to any, in the US, it would be like a CVS. In Korea, it's like a yakguk. Not all of them have it. The pharmacies in Korea, not all of them, but you can get it anywhere and it's inexpensive. It is not like the US getting an IV drip in the US, right? Where it's more like because you're in a medical crisis or you're dehydrated. In Korea, like I told you, I think I just started doing the last year. I'll be honest with you. I grew up with a family of doctors in the US. So when you grow up with a family of doctors, like your dad and uncles, they're all like, don't do that. So I grew up that mentality. But then as I'm more and more like invested in spending time with my cousins, they're like, you're so tired, Annie, just go get an IV. And I went, yeah, what's up with that? Why do you guys all get that? They go, what do you mean? And then I'm like, oh my gosh, it's brilliant. Like I told my parents, they go, yeah, we know that. And I'm like, okay, why don't we have that in the US? My parents are like, you don't need to. So they're more like, you don't need to depend on it. Doctors are like, suck it up. That's how my family was. You're sick, you'll be fine. Where in Korea, if you feel fatigued, go get an IV drip. It's a vitamin C drip. I've done the garlic drip. I did the energy boosting drip. That's supposed to be good for your skin. That's called legit. It's like less than, I don't know, would you say like copay, $50 or something like that? Yeah. So that's why it's common and it does help. And you feel it. And so people do it. You're not supposed to do it more than once a week though. Okay. What is next? I'm loving these questions. These are fun questions. Filial piety, I hadn't realized. Yes. Okay. Filial piety, just let me talk on this. Thanks, Vera. It is rooted in Confucianism, Chinese Confucianism, philosophical thought, but Korean culture is rooted in Confucianism. So that is why it still pertains today. It is a huge concept. And by the way, I teach filial piety even in corporate because we see it in how Asian Americans make decisions in corporate America as executives, right? Where they feel like, oh, I can't argue with my CEO. I'm like, why can't you argue with them? There's a way to do it. They go, I'm not supposed to, disagree. I went, what? So you see that, right? And so that's part of my job when I do as an executive coach, particularly I do that. Okay. Do parents really have that much control over kids dating, married? Yes. I don't know. Should I expand? Yes, they do. Yeah, like 100%. Doesn't matter if you're troubled or not. It is very big deal. Even in my family, you guys kind of know how I grew up. Yeah, they disapproved of my own husband. Now they love him. Actually, they love him more than me. But no, it was like that too. Depending on where your partner how your partner grew up, what school he went to in Korea, what kind of family, what do they do now? What's his job? Very, very, very enmeshed. It can be, I think that's why I think it can be really, really hard. I cracked up seeing Lisa's comment. Didn't I always look 30 before the IVs? K-Beauty skincare. But thank you for that. So no, they're very much involved. It's actually once they get their kids in college, their next thing is, when are they going to get married? How are they going to get married? Who are they going to get married to? That kind of thing. I see it. Yeah. So that's all I have to say. They do have a lot of control. Now, of course, the Gen Zs and folks that are younger really don't like all that pressure, but that's part of the culture. Now, I will say, though, I do talk to some families that don't feel that as much. They're like, no, my parents are okay with it. They're not pushing me as much. I'm like, oh, that's great. So there is a tide turning. That doesn't mean every family is like this. Just historically, and I would say traditionally, yes, parents have a say. It's because they care, right? And it's all about the family they marry into. In-law presence is very big in Korea. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Is it fine to like the art and culture but still hate the society? Yeah, everything's fine. It's very important to know that you can have love and hate. I just told you, grew up love and hate my culture. In fact, it was probably more hate, but then now there's love and hate, right? So you can love and hate many things. even people, even in your family. It's maybe not hate, maybe dislike and love, right? And a society in a whole, you may not like the way they do something, but love certain parts of it. So I think that's, in fact, I think it's more normal to be this than someone going, oh my God, I love everything about, though I do hear that about South Korea, but that's not always normal. It's gonna, as you get more realistic into seeing the real parts of everything, the things you see in the K-dramas that are legit, you'll know. And so I think it's really important to have the dialectics, two different feelings of emotions, right? You can have that. If you separate it, then you'll feel distressful going, oh, I should be loving this culture. No, you can love the culture overall, but be like, I cannot stand that part of the culture. I say it all the time, you know, even in the US, right? We're like, really can't stand this, right? Whatever that is. But you're still living here and there's still parts of that you're like, you're proud to be an American or Canadian or wherever you live. And I think that's really important. As a Korean born in Seoul, grew up in the USA since age, I have a fear of becoming the scary Korean mother-in-law when my boys get married. That is another conversation. We can talk offline, SK. Feel free to DM me because I have 3 boys. Yeah. I don't think I'll be scary. My husband thinks I'll be scary in the beginning because I can come, you know, even though I come across like this, I am a little like, oh, see, so you're dating my son, you know? So, I do that. I do have that tendency because I'm all like, I like to know all these things. And then I always ask, so do you like kimchi? I did that with my daughter's boyfriend. I couldn't help it. I was like, so do you like kimchi? And then when he was like, I was like, what? Did we have a problem? He is Caucasian and love him. They've been dating for a while. And now I want to say I'm impressed with what he eats. It's just the kimchi, I guess, the cabbage or the texture, but he'll eat everything else that's so like weird, even in Korean culture. I'm like, you like that fish, you know? But yeah, I totally understand. But you know what? That's also behavior maybe you've seen, but you can always break that cycle. So you just are aware of your shortcomings. I'm aware of that and know that I have to be like, oh my gosh, I want to get close to my future daughter-in-laws. Of course I do. So I hope that part will subside. But you don't know how you'll be until it happens. More like you don't know how you'll be as a parent until you become a parent. So when people say, oh, if I become a mom, I was like, you know, take it with a grain of salt. I'm like, maybe just see when you become a mom how you're going to be, you know, same thing. So I don't know where this question came from, but yeah, of course you can love everything and hate everything, but then love everything and hate everything. I hope that helps. If a child goes to the US for school, then stays to work, do they send money home to their parents? Some do. Yeah, it's kind of what I was exposed to too, without sharing too much. Not my parents, obviously, but yeah, some do. If they're able to, they will do it. And lots of Korean parents, if they can afford it, would love their kids to study in the US. I think there's reasons for that, you know, the experience of being in the US, but also it's just easier. Can you believe it? Yeah, I think one person said something like, yeah, Harvard's pretty easy. I don't know who said this. Maybe it was a client. I went, Harvard's easy. Yeah, you were raised in Korea with the education system, you know? So it's a joke. But yeah, they do send their kids to the US if they're able to. Scary mother-in-law is not only in Korea. Very true. We're just talking our Korean experience. But Korean mother-in-law is what I know. It's super scary and how their mothers turn into monsters and often their daughter-in-law stuck living with the in-laws. Yeah, we could talk offline. I think I've shared my own story. Yeah, now we're close, but like I think I've shared with many people, and it's part of there's. So I talk all the time, right, on different platforms. But we didn't really see my in-laws for 7 years. Just mic drop, because I had to do with that same thing. So as a family therapist, there are times I advise things that may make sense, but now you don't see that, and that's not really part of our daily life anymore. And what is this about Kim Soo-hyun? What did I miss about Kim Soo-hyun? Oh, how popular Kim Soo-hyun is in Korea, I want to know. Yeah, he's pretty popular. Yeah, like number 1 popular. Pretty much what you see here globally, he's just as popular in Korea. Now, there's some people that are more popular globally, but not as in Korea. I'm trying to think. I don't know. If you want to ask me questions, let me know, but he's pretty popular. Okay, let's move on. Oh my gosh, almost 15 minutes. Can you explain how the friendship dynamics work? There seems to be lack of communication. So I did see this and chose to put it in because I just want to talk about communication, but I'm not sure the context of this. But have you noticed in the K-dramas, there's always lack of communication? It's like nonverbal, right? That's the culture. It's like sometimes I'm just like, oh my gosh, someone say something. I've run into that same issue many times with doing business in Korea. And it's not necessarily friends, it's just we're friendly, but I'd be like, what did you mean? Like, you said yes, and then it didn't mean yes, right? So the lack of communication is also the concept of pleasing, not filial piety, but trying to keep the peace. That's another Confucius principle, being peaceful and harmonious. So that is what Koreans want to do. At the end of the day, they don't want conflict. They don't want to rock the boat. They want to be good and be dutiful. And that's why there's such a high stress culture, because they're following expectations, right? And then not necessarily verbalizing, hey, I'm very stressed out. And that's also how I grew up. So the lack of communication comes with some expectations, competition, part of the culture. You don't say things. I want that to be better, especially when people are in crisis, which I'm going to talk about shortly. But you sometimes do need to talk about things, saying, what's going on? How are you? You look stressed. You know, you appreciate when people do that to you. So that's not something I always like the lack of communication. Silence is also not lack of, but silence also is a form of communication, however you want to take it. So in our field, we say science. You're never not communicating. You are never not communicating. So even when you're silent, you're communicating. And you know what I mean, right? It could be a comfortable silence or very, very uncomfortable, deadly silence. So that lack of communication, depending on how you word that, is a big part of the culture. But how it can be helped is just honestly asking simple questions like, how are you? Like, what are you doing? Now, some of the stuff I see in K-dramas are great, but then you see I get DMs all the time. This is so frustrating. I'm like, yeah, it's there. It's frustrating for me too. And so I guess that's part of my work. It's okay to talk about, if you don't want to talk about something because it's uncomfortable, you're going to have to get used to that uncomfortable feeling. It's very hard, not just in Korean culture, in any culture, to talk about things uncomfortable. That's why grief, I talk about this a lot. You don't want to ask, I'm so like, how are you doing? You know how uncomfortable it is to talk about someone who just lost somebody? It is very uncomfortable. But if you can get past that, knowing this is not comfortable, but of course I need to ask. I would rather have that, because none of this ever gets really comfortable, right? Especially if you're asking tough things and talking about tough things. Let's go to the next question. Yeah, 7 years. Why is public opinion so strong when celebrities mess up? I think this is the last question. So, as you can imagine, I got lots of questions. Oh, sorry. My producer said second to last question. I get lots of questions this particular week, and just what's been going on in the news, right? You guys have been following the news. I don't want to contribute to any other hearsay because I'm not directly involved, but I think it just goes back. I'm going to repeat again to a very competitive, high expectation driven culture that's founded on achievements and success and doing well. And then you have a celebrity who people put on a pedestal anywhere, even in the US. We're like, here, wow, you're this, right? Just some cultures are more forgiving than others. And so I think there is no one way of looking at this and saying it's bad or good. In my honest opinion, I really wish there was just a little bit more forgiveness, but it really depends on the mess up, right? Yeah. And so I'll have to mention this. I knew somebody was gonna bring this up. The media. I think the problem is the same thing. Let's say the same thing that's happening in Korea, competitive culture. It's also, don't forget, I was a former journalist, so I'm very keen on all things journalism. In my field, back in the day when I was on air on the Associated Press in DC, extremely competitive. That's kind of why I pulled out. I just didn't want to live that way. But so I know the very competitive nature, even in the US. So you can imagine it being, I don't know, double in Korea to get that news story first, or to show that video first, because it makes sense. Unlike the US, where the first thing I learned as a journalist is to fact check. So I'm not saying Koreans don't fact check, but I think very different culture. And so I'm going to leave it at that with the media. I will say there's some things that I just feel like are unfortunate that have happened. And a lot of my work is working with journalists. So I see all sides of the story. Now, this is the hardest part. This is why I said this was a very distressful week. When you're in my position and I'm treating actual patients, I still call them patients, clients, because I started my field in the medical field. it can be very difficult because I'm actually treating folks. So I have to come from the perspective of the person. And so the reason I'm bringing that up, it's very different to talk about mental health than someone who treats mental health. So I'm always really refraining going, have you ever treated somebody with panic disorder or anxiety or somebody who was bullied? Very different. But I'm bringing that up because that all relates to when celebrities mess up or when they make a mistake. Maybe make a mistake is better because they will make a mistake. So I really, really wish the school of thought is you will make a mistake because you're human. Like, hello, right? I don't care who you are. You will make a mistake. You may not show it. You may save face and hide it, which is very much the Korean culture. And I think that's another part. You make a mistake and it's public. I think that's unfortunate. In the US, the saying is innocent until proven guilty, though honestly, I've seen lots of experience where that's not the case. Guilty until proven innocent, whatever. It's a little different in Korea. There's more distrust in the beginning. You have to earn trust. So I study this in psychology. Trust in the US, you're given the benefit of the doubt. Americans tend to go, oh, I'll do business with you. And then hopefully it works out. In Asia, or specifically Korea, but also East Asia, it's more like, let me see whether I'll do business with you. You have to prove that you're trustworthy. Hence why the work dinners, the haeshiks, right? You see them after. That's where a lot of the trust builds. I've also experienced that trust of getting together and meeting up. It takes time. So I think that's part of that. They trusted them, and that trust is so hard to build. And, again, a mistake. And some people just see the mistake as deadly, right? Deadly, I shouldn't say that. As costly, very costly, right? And so I think that's really important that this is such a sensitive topic. I very much have a hard time with it. I'm just going to say that. Very much have a hard time with it because I hear 50,000 sides of the story. So hopefully that answers that, but I don't condone cancel culture and all that stuff. I just think that's too harsh. So let's go to the next, which is the next question, which is, this is a tough question. What can be done to make the K-pop fandom culture and industry less toxic? Also, Korean dramas are good at showing how the more loud shouting anger someone shows reflects how close they are to the person on receiving it. I guess you're right. Yeah. Koreans are very emotional. So you see it on the K-dramas. That's pretty accurate. But in real life, people might see they're composed, but no, they're very emotional. They're full of so much emotion. And that's where you see it in the K-drama. So I'm diverting this. What can we do? Well, I can't control the industry, but I feel like I can say to you, control what community you surround yourself with. There's some communities that are just, I think, a little less healthy. I'm saying that nicely. I'm like, what is going on? And there's some communities you have to understand on social media. If you're my age, you remember the year social media came out. Do you remember when Facebook came out? I do. I was 32. Yeah. So whatever year that was, 2007, 2006, that is when Facebook came. So young folks, or if you're on here, we're not on social media like that. So the younger folks tend to say things maybe, and I work with a lot of them where they'll just post away and not think of the harshness of the words they're saying because they can, stay kind of behind a wall of social media. Social media can be excellent too because it can build communities. So there's always that double-edged sword, but less toxic fandom is sticking to a fandom that you find healthy. Fandoms are great. K-drama fandoms are great, right? K-pop fandoms can be great. I say can because I tend to see a little bit more toxicity in that fandom because there's many more parts, right? K-dramas I think are simpler with the show and then the actors. K-pops, there are many different groups, many different group members, right? Many different group members, fans, people in the group might have different, people they stand even in a group. So then you can have that competition. But at the end of the day, I'm just going to say this. I don't know if any group wants to would like to see their own fandom at odds. And that's the toxicity I tend to see. I tend to see where it's oh, I'm going to fight you. What did you mean by that? And that, my friends, is the very thing you're contributing to making an industry more toxic. So if you want to be healthy, you get off social media, take a break. Don't doom scroll. That's why I did that reel because I know a lot of people were looking at all these posts with what was happening in the news. Yeah, and I think particularly in the Korean culture, the fan base has a lot of power. So if you know you have power, then power it to good and showing good. I showed in that my K Talk live graphic, the 1,000 letters for Yoongi. I thought that was great. Like, I mean, and someone showed that to me. I didn't know about it because just so you know, I'm barely on social media. I really am not. So I don't follow hashtags. I don't have time, but I also purposely don't, because a lot of my work outside of it has to do with social media. Journalists, clients, leaders, very much, swayed by the social media that I have to have a break. So I just post and then follow you guys and talk to you guys in DM, right? But when I was heard about this 1,000 letters of Yoongi and some other BTS communities that are doing really great things, let's focus on those, find those people. Those will be really beneficial to your mental health. There are going to be haters. And I'll say that the K-drama community as a whole is pretty nice. I have found that. And again, because the K-pop community has many different elements, you just get a gamut of things. And I'm not really on TikTok, but I'll see things on TikTok and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a younger demographic, right? And then for the sake of not sounding mommy, like too mom-like, I just won't even comment. So I also refrain. I don't comment back. I know you may want to, try not to. So the things you can control is your own actions. You can't even control your own fellow, like if we're talking army, you can't control fellow army actions. You can't even control, like, I'm thinking other fandoms. Names are not Blinks. I'm thinking whatever. Any other fandoms, you cannot control what they do. You can definitely control you. So before we try to control others going, stop doing that, stop posting, blah, blah, blah. Think of what you're doing that's help you, because the more healthy you are emotionally, the better you'll be to everybody else. And so that's what I'm seeing. I think the most unfortunate thing I saw was very, very unhealthy comments on social media regarding everything that's happening. I love this. The tour guide, the people talking on my tour, that is it with the questions. I went a little over an hour. Thank you for being on here. I do have one thing to share. So can you believe we're about to hit the 1-year anniversary of Noona's Noonchi Tours? 1-year anniversary. Okay, first of all, I feel like I've done it for 5 years already. It feels so long. Not bad. It's just so much has happened. But it hasn't even hit 1 year since we launched that first tour in September 12th, 2023 last year. Can you believe it? I'm like so blessed. So much has happened. So many more friends I've made. Like, I really mean it. If you DM me, particularly when you've been on my tour and I know your name and stuff, it's really, really helpful for me. I love it. And so you guys will get DMs from me. But I want to share, we have anniversary specials coming up. Yeah, everyone's thinking discounts to the tours. Not necessarily. Enhancements, meaning during our anniversary special, which we'll be announcing in the next week or two. Oh my gosh, already in September soon. You will see lots of cool stuff. Partnerships we've done and collaborations happening for 2025. And K-Beauty, I had to bring this up, K-Beauty products, goodies, part of packages. So I'm super excited because it's all about enhancement and developing those relationships. And I'm excited about that. But also the big gift during our anniversary special will be, best way it can tell it, which is why I was hinting to it, it has to do with me giving you homework. What does that mean? Sorry, me giving you K-drama homework. Okay? That's all I can say. You'll find out. This is for anniversary special. We'll be launching for over 2 weeks to celebrate September 12th, 9/12. By the way, September 12th, I will go live from Korea. I wanted to give you that. I will be live in Korea, and I think I'm literally hitting the ground. Me and my team, hubby and son, will be hitting the ground running the minute we get there to check out some sites. By the way, I'm also going to check out My Sweet Mobster sites. I'm totally digressing, but I have to see that My Sweet Mobster house, so that I'm like, that's number one on my agenda, just to go there and live. I'm still a fangirl. Hello. But 9/12, I will be going live from Korea to celebrate the 1-year anniversary. But before that, you will see a bunch of things going on. So I am going to sign off soon. K-drama is never homework. I know. Can you think of a better word? It's going to be a special during the anniversary time where you're going to be getting that stuff. I don't know how to explain it. K-drama group deep dives. That's kind of what they are. So, but I never got to really do that with you. The Goblin House. Oh yeah. Yeah, I think that's no longer available though, Sophia. Otherwise, I'd be on the tour. Hello. Yeah. What else? Thank you, Jeannie. I miss you guys too. I agree. Sometimes avoid making comments. Thank you. I'm just making sure I'm not. The Cherry Blossom Tour. Yes, you guys are definitely powerful here. Definitely. I love it. I want someday you guys to all meet, whether it's in the US, most likely the US and Canada. I just revealed something, but never mind. We will reveal it in all due time. For now, let me get through the anniversary and I'm going to sign off now. But thank you for staying on for an hour. I always try to get it to 45 minutes. My goal said 45 minutes, whatever. No, I just like talking to you guys and I can't wait to see some of you in Korea, but you'll still see me for the next couple of weeks. I'm going to be staying home to rest and recharge and then yeah, and taking care. I thought something else. Oh yeah, my son starts his senior year next week. So lots of school stuff happening. And that's going to be a little hard leaving while he starts his senior year, but we didn't want to put it off. So we kind of had to do the 3 tours, but it's okay. He's our 4th child and he like the most needy, but talks to us all the time. So nice to bump into you. K-Star wrote, oh, I did bump into you. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I randomly bump into people now. And so I love it. Thank you for saying hello. And I remember that it was you and somebody else, right? Yep. And the K-Star wrote an Apgujeongdong. Thanks, guys. Farewell for now and see you again soon. Always reach out to me.